Oh. Hello, and welcome to the BigRonInterview with
Your battery.
Mark.
Hi! Can't tell you're really coming.
The silence is a lot.
The battery today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Joe Boudreau. I know Aaron Lucci from False Riding Camp. He was had Jesus here, and he was the first person who knew I was gay before others did. So that's important. And he wrote in a little note, he said nature versus nurture, and then he also said wear more scars. So I thought that was wholesome, to both be intellectual and also be yourself. And no one's here, so.
Speaking of here, Joe, where are we right now?
We're in Aaron's apartment, number 2. Really? You only had 2?
Oh no, but this is number 2, Hobart Street,
Okay.
46.
In Brighton.
Joe, what song is stuck in your head right now?
I don't have a song stuck in my head right now.
Interesting. Joe, describe your mom to me.
My mom is sociable, very funny, has a lot of good stories. I've been living with my parents again, and I haven't seen them in a while, and I feel like I've noticed that I'm way more like my mom than my dad, and it's weird to just be like, yo, I get someone way more than I get the other person. But overall, my mom can get along with anyone.
Just like you. What is your opinion of the band Krill?
I don't know Krill. Sorry.
Can you describe the moon to me?
Do we want to be real? Do we want to be can I just speak freely like it's an interview, kind of get excited?
This is definitely an interview, and you can definitely speak freely.
Okay. The moon is mystical for me. I'm in a poetic phase. I'm writing a collection of poetry, and so the moon has begun to have more meaning than I would have given it before. And from the moon cycles, and weirdly finding associations with them, and finding my own life's chapters being defined by them, to just the symbolism of what the moon is versus the sun. So I feel like I'm interested in the kind of idea of the moon as another celestial being opposed to the sun, which is known for its radiance and more positive attitudes, and I feel like the moon is more nebulous and esoteric and something that you kind of don't know why you're influenced by, and it's something that's subtle, discerning, and more profound because of those things. So I like the darkness. I see my soul in that.
Have you read The Secret History by Don Tartt?
No.
It's okay.
What do you think of the moon? Have you had any meaningful interactions with that?
When I think of the moon, I think of the scene in the Harry Potter movie, book 3, when Lupin is afraid of the moon and it turns into a balloon and it blows away.
Okay.
That's usually.
But what do you think about planetary influence on us? Astrology, etc.
I think it's crazy that the moon controls the tides.
Yeah.
It just sucks all the water on the whole planet to one side and then the other.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. It's
Yeah.
Star Wars shit.
Yeah. But do you believe that what is in the atmosphere, in the planetary world, influences us? Do you believe in astrology? No.
No.
What's your retort to it?
he was quick with an apology when he wisecracked the Zodiac.
Okay. Silence.
What do you feel about, interviewee is interviewer, I warned you. What do you think about silence in general? Like, how do you feel conversation? Like, sometimes I'm quick to fill it because I'm worried that silence equals tedium or boredom or uncomfort. But sometimes rushing to answer the blank, the fill the void is actually, either selfish or really misunderstanding of the situation.
Useless noise.
Okay.
My favorite jazz artist, Miles Davis, is a master of leaving space in his solos. Same thing with Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. Two of my favorite soloists leave a lot of space and are very good at it, and really make the people who play too much or talk too much stand out.
Jazz is really inspiring. Not a lot of art forms have that sense of improvisation and free play. I'm always envious of that ability to make on the spot.
They're pretty hip people.
Yeah.
Joe, 2022 has just ended. What was your favorite album?
It's a mouthful. Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You by Big Thief. Yours?
Ooh. The 10th anniversary edition of Mac DeMarco's album 2.
Okay. What is the second album? It's what is it?
Cop Out.
Okay. What songs are on it? What's the album cover? What's the photo?
It's him going like this with his guitar.
Okay, I love that one. It's by the water?
That's him standing in the water with his
It's
overalls.
yellow then?
No, that's this old dog. Man.
I'm sorry.
Joe, how would you describe your best friend, and how would your best friend describe you?
Okay. I'm prefaced before that my best friend is now my enemy. So sensitive topic matter. But yeah, I don't have a best friend at the moment. Because I just lost my best friend.
Well, it's more of a,
And then
how would the person who is your best friend describe you?
I just said I don't have a best friend.
It
But
doesn't matter who it is.
okay. I feel like sociable and curious and just fun. But again, I feel like it's so related to a person. What do you? How much do you think we get in trouble when we rely on others to define us? I think ever since we're children, some of the first things that we have in terms of who influences us is subject to the other person's perception and their opinions, and we never really have a lot of say of our identity. What we like is based on what others tell us we're good at, and we follow through with that. And so sometimes I am afraid that who I am is way too dependent on how others perceive me as. When I was in LA, I lived with people who saw me as analytical, and I became more of that because of being complimented for that. And so I think that's something of, it's hard to kind of combat being who we are. Who we are depends on who we're with, and I think it shouldn't be that way. I think who we are should be always legible and universal. And so when I'm saying that question made me think about how dependent we're on others for perceptions of ourselves. And so I was specifically thinking of a person and how they saw me, but I really think I'm way more just innately curious as a person and just merciless. I very much don't always want to speak the truth and don't care about fun as much as I care about authenticity.
I think I feel much the same way, and I've always struggled to keep a best friend for that reason.
Yeah.
Joe, one of my one of my good memories with you is talking about This Old Man, the Mac DeMarco album that's yellow. The first listen through, I didn't really like it very much, and I hadn't listened to it again, and then you told me that it was one of your favorite albums of the year. I believe this was when you were back in college. The album came out in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
It has since become one of my favorite albums
I love Yesterday.
due to your insistence that it was a good album, and it has really shaped my mental song stuck in my head.
He's a great lyricist. He's really profound. Like it was so fun to see him live, like because he's so wild and like fun.
Where did you see him live?
The Boston Colony. And he just like chugged a whole bottle of tequila.
If you watch the video of Mac DeMarco at Boston Calling, you can see Joe Boudreau in the crowd at the show. I've seen this.
We threw a hat, we threw a shirt, we threw everything we had to get him to see us. Someone proposed to him to go to prom, and then that guy got tackled by the bodyguards, like the policeman, and then like escorted out, and then like he tried to like. I was surprised at how much Mac DeMarco was just like unhinged. Like you mean his lyrics and his mood is like really wholesome, but he was just chaotic. Yes.
Isn't it this old dog?
Fuck me. I love that. Well, he has a song called "Old Man" or "This Old
My
Man."
Old Man is the first song
So
on the
you
album.
had the
This
mic.
Old Dog. But you got it. You're right.
Joe, what is your favorite animated character?
Cartman.
Cartman from South Park.
I watched South Park when I grew up a lot.
Yeah.
It was like my sister.
That's
played
late
it.
night TV, Joe. You were watching TV after midnight.
No, my sister played it. My parents left. That's what I did. I grew up on it. Group imagination.
But they only played. What
We
time?
had the CDs. We had the CDs.
Oh, you had DVDs of South Park you were playing?
Yeah. My sister was raunchy.
That's deep.
It was fun.
Um,
But they're great storytellers. Like one thing that they said is like it should always be like yes and, which is like the comedian credo. But you should or like but then like stories should always move forward with complication, and they were really great at doing that. And one thing I feel like Brendan's on block for the two people watching this. They should like South Park was so good at staying current, and they would literally write their episodes a week before it was aired, and they would always, try to be commenting on the day, and that's awesome.
like SNL.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. And this episode is brought to you by Montucky Cold Snack.
What about like Nike or like Air Balance or whatever? You have 48 shoes in the front of the house for it. Cut to preserve that.
Air Balance.
Joe Boudreau, what is the most classic prank?
Whoopee cushion.
Joe Boudreau, if you had a side job, what would it be?
One that makes me a lot of money quickly.
How do you feel about
What would that be? What would that be? What is like a passive income? Everyone says they have one, but what is that?
OnlyFans?
Yeah, we have to do like sexy or something. But OnlyFans is a good answer, so I'll accept.
Money's fake. How do you feel about pyramid schemes?
Sad. Any like exploitation I feel sad about.
When is the last time you went fishing?
Many years ago. Maine, like probably when I was like 8.
Have you ever participated in the Lake Quannapowitt carp fishing competition?
I was. That's hilarious. I haven't even fished in my own backyard, which is on the lake. So.
At what age did you learn to sail?
I actually did learn to sail when I was in 4th grade. I would do sailing lessons at the Lakeland Paddle Club. I like my parents' house. I hope I can get it from them.
Joe Boudreau,
He gave me his binder for AP U.S. History, and I cheated on exams because I had some of the answers. Or he gave it to Nick Hill, and then I got it from Nick Hill, and I got a 5 on the UPS. But yeah.
I got a 3 on the AP US History exam, so I'm glad that binder really
Helped it
went
out.
up in value after 2 years. Who was your favorite teacher at WHS, Joe? We both went to Wakefield High School, fine establishment.
You?
I was your favorite teacher.
No, who was yours?
I asked you the question first. Joe, who is your favorite teacher at Wakefield High School?
Honestly, Mr. Brosby, I'm not saying that because of the last one, but he was definitely like the more challenging and energetic of the teachers I've had.
You?
My favorite teacher was Mrs. Schilling.
She was cool.
She was the best. I wish I took more classes with her.
Yeah.
My biggest regret of high school is not taking TV production with Mr. Barris and Mr. Constantine, because it's what I do the most.
Because this would be lit better.
Everything about this would be better.
Let's stay on the high school vein.
Okay.
Describe Wakefield High School to me, Joe.
Trash
First,
barrels in the hallways, leaking ceiling, intercom.
Who was
Would
your
you add?
Who was your guidance counselor?
Robertson, Mr. Robertson.
That's tough. What would I add? I would add brick masonry hallways, 12 by 12 linoleum floor, chairs and desks that have been in place for mismatched chairs and desks that have been in place for 40 years.
I wouldn't do anything differently. Like, I don't feel like what would you have gotten by going to a private school, by going to different, like, I don't know,
agree.
it's just whatever.
I loved my time at Wakefield High School.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm kidding. I don't know. I wish you could just constantly have newness in your life and constantly be able to meet new people and have that level of like social interaction. I'm just bemoaning that constantly. I'm like a kind of broken record, but I just really believe that. I really think it's hard to form new like you had
Connections without
yeah,
the structure
exactly.
of school.
Yes.
I feel the same often. I miss college, I miss middle school, and I miss high school.
Yeah. I think it's also like COVID really changed a lot. Like I think, and I also think I got in my head with being the one that texted first and like crossing my arms, shrugging my shoulders, saying I'm not going to be that person. And then if you've always been that person, people
just get
expect you to
sad.
be that person. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know how to. Do we think there will be like? Do you feel like that sense of isolation that happened because of the pandemic, like, has had pretty impactful, like, negatively impacted us? I feel like it's created a culture of,
Canceled plans.
yeah, and like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a different world than pre-COVID and post-COVID. It was a different world.
Just like World War II.
I'll accept that.
What is something that you have lost that you've never been able to find again?
I lost an iPad when I went to Spain. I left it on like the airplane thing. I never found it again. Rip.
On that iPad was your primary game, Solitaire.
No, I don't play solitaire. Whist!
What is the most recent book that you've read, Joe?
I just read Naja by Andre Breton.
I don't know that book, Joe.
Makes sense. It was found in my closet. So, I'm going to tell you something actually very interesting. I've been writing a poetry book, and there have been very bizarre parallels that have happened while I'm writing it. Weird coincidences that have like been relevant to what I'm writing and explicated something along the lines of like what I need to do. And this book appeared in that same light of basically the author for a couple of days was under the spell of like meeting his soul, and his soul came to him as a character, and that was what the book was about. But it was right at the time that I prayed that if my soul, which I felt like was writing this poetry collection, would appear to me, like I asked for it to do it that day, and I found that book that day. So there's a lot of like lovely coincidences that happen with that. So that book is a really kind of high recommendation for anyone that wants to go on a immaterial, thoughtful sojourn.
And that book is again
Naja
by
Andre Breton.
published by Random House.
Subscribe, link below.
Joe, who is your biggest critic?
Oh my god, that's a good question. Me.
Joe, what is the last rule that you broke?
Drinking, driving.
Driving this interview. What has your closest scrape with death been?
I got addicted to Adderall this year, and I took a lot of it. And one time I took way too much, and I was going on a binge, and I think I had a heart attack, but never checked up on it.
Whoa.
Well, death is a dark subject. Like I don't know. There's a whole side of me that's like very different. That's been because of I'm not like a spiritual person at all. I don't really have faith in things. I'm not like a positive person. But the poetry collection asks you to be those things. And so I've entered a whole new metaphysical realm that I've never like entertained before. And they've disclosed so many fascinating things about life. And one of the things that I believe that I encountered was death. And death is a very like friendly thing. It's very blissful. It's very like welcoming. It's almost like carrying a hand to the uncharted territory. And I don't think that death is something to be feared at all. And I don't have any fear towards death. I think that almost dying is like obviously traumatic. But I don't think death is something that we should fear. I think death is something that like accept and move on and realize that like every day I think life is more intolerable than death. I think life is something that you have to deal with. But yeah. I don't even think, is that like depressive to say? Like what do you think about that?
I think about death a lot, but
Who's
think
like a
that's-
closer friend? Life or death? Or like that's not even right. 'cause
life is to me, it's just more of a, friends are familiar, so life is much more familiar than death. I haven't experienced very much death.
Yeah.
But I have no fear. I'm also not a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
Although I have had spiritual experiences, and I wouldn't. What's the question?
Well, just general thoughts.
you know, as we all go through hard times in high school, I thought about suicide a lot, and you know, it's always kind of, I think people who've thought about suicide know that it's always in the back of your mind, even if you're not suicidal anymore. It's like something you think about as just like something that could happen. So it's like familiar in that sense,
Mhm.
but so that would make it friendly.
Mhm.
But just generally, I'm more focused on life.
Mhm, mhm. I think death is something that's like, you don't have to go out violently. Like, you just, death is a moment. Like, all these moments are built, and they're just filled with something that you have to, like, you feel obliged to, like, this is such a profound moment to be able to even talk about a moment, and you feel the moment more because you feel the time passing in the camera, and like one other person holding a camera, and the like awkwardness of that, and like, and then another person interviewing, like, you just feel that kind of level of discomfort, and like that is and then you feel obliged to fill it. And I just think that there's not a lot of spaces that are built for this type of dialogue, and I think this type of dialogue puts a spotlight on, and that's why I've always loved film. I've always loved it as a pan art, as something that's like a cumulative expression of human experience, and you can kind of comment on whether or not these moments are worth it and just what they are filled with, and so I just think that like life and death isn't a battle as much as like a slog. But I feel like I need to be positive right now to compensate for that.
Have you read Dante's Inferno?
I have not.
Have you read The Road by Cormac?
Yeah.
I feel like that book deals with death a lot, and like how it seems like it would be better to die than to live in that world that they're in. I think about that.
I want to read his like newest books they just came out with.
I've only read The Road by Cormac McCarthy. He has the other one, Blood Meridian,
Yeah.
which is newer.
Yeah.
There's other newer books. I don't know.
They just came out this year.
Oh.
There's a 2-part.
I like your boots. On a lighter note,
Joe, tell me a story.
this is the best part of the interview. Alright, ready? Really quick. I went to a farm. I met a lot of interesting people. The person who ran the farm, she was a 90-year-old woman. She started college. She was a feminist icon. She brought over a clairvoyant. The clairvoyant, when I went over many years, 2 years later, was going to LA, final semester of college, stopped there to have dinner. The clairvoyant, while passingly, said she had this great time in India. And I asked her what would happen. Like, she was kind of being very cryptic about it, and she gave me this whole little pile of paper. This is a hard story to quickly tell, but I'm gonna try my best. I read it. Basically what happened was she had a miscarriage and prayed to the gods to have another child because she was ready to be a mother. Sorry, correction. Her 4-year-old died. It was the anniversary of his death. She prayed to have another child. She got pregnant like that night. She was a clairvoyant, so she believed she could talk to death. She couldn't talk to that child, and then that child was like 3 months pregnant. She still felt like she couldn't communicate with it. She was having terrible like bed sickness, was feeling like really ill, and then she basically finally felt like she communed with him, and it was like, I'm gonna live my own life. I don't care who you are. As like a host mother, I'm gonna do my own thing. And she was like, that's not what I asked for. Like, I'm here to welcome you, whatever spirit you want. And then she had a miscarriage and never delivered the baby. Several years later, she had this vision of a child in India, like a 9-year-old boy. And she realized how like that person she prayed to be the mother for was actually born, but to another mother in another country. And so she contacted like a guru in India that she was familiar with and told her about her vision. And the two of them talked about like planning a trip. And so she started describing where she saw him, and they decided that it was like in this specific area, and they went there together. And she arrived, and she was like, there's one other person that needs to be here. And she was going to a restaurant, and when she walked in, the host that she met started crying, bawling his eyes out the second she walked in. And he was like, I know you were coming. I was meant to meet you. And never knew each other, never talked to each other. That man came along on the journey. They went to one major capital, they went to another major capital, they visited all these like offshoot cities, and then like in the final, like after multiple days of visiting, they were like in this little town, and the last bus to the major city was there, and they were like, okay, like we probably can't keep doing this, like we're not seeing this child, it's going nowhere. And then she heard like this dog barking, and she was like, what is that? Like, we need to go follow that. And they're like, no, like this is the last bus to the city, like we can't miss this is not a safe area at all. And she was like, no, like we need to go up there. And they walked up to this hill where the dog was barking, and there was a dead child in the woods, like a 9-year-old dead boy. And she was like, that was the kid that she had wished to have, but like didn't have, but was born as a soul into another body. And then later that night, the guru fucked her. And she like literally was pregnant again, told her husband that she got pregnant with this guy, that this was meant to happen. He was okay with it. She felt like this was the spirit again, this was all proper, she was having communications with him, ended up having another miscarriage, but that was like the story, and I just like never left me. It was like the most bizarre, wild story, and it was like told passingly in the like kind of generic conversation you have with people when you're talking about like, oh, I love Italy, I love going to Cinque Terre or XYZ, and so, I don't know, it just always like blew me away that like people live crazy lives. But that was the abbreviated scatty version.
Thank you.
At the beginning,
It's so cryptic though. It's so wild.
Wait,
like
did
it's a
she
wild
hand you-
story.
I thought at the beginning you
She
said
wrote a story about it.
she handed this to you. She handed all of that to you.
Like it was a little,
It's a
like
book.
a 9-page,
Oh, okay.
like type.
I thought she wrote you a note.
No.
That
She already,
contained all that. I was like,
she already had written it.
Okay.
She had written other
Okay.
crazy things. She was thankful for that.
Welcome back. This episode of the Big Ron blog is brought to you by Tony Lama Cowboy Boots.
Only available at
TonyLama.com. Tony Lama was an Italian immigrant who immigrated to Texas from Italy. He started making cowboy boots around 1911. This one, I believe, was made in 2022 by his
111 years later.
great grandson. You guessed it, Tony Lama III. Okay, Joe.
My nephew is named after his father, and it just becomes like a complication when you're at a dinner table.
Joe, we've come to our final part of the interview.
And
Joe, do you have any questions for me?
do you have any disappointments?
I'm disappointed that I didn't spend 5 years in college. I'm disappointed that I did not take TV production from Mr. Morris. I'm disappointed I didn't meet Laura sooner.
Oh.
But who is your biggest critic?
Laura is my biggest critic.
Good for you, Laura. Keeping one in check. I always think that. More questions for you? I'm sure I can think of them. Are you happy?
Yes, I'm happy.
Were you happy in college?
I was very happy in college.
That's good. That's all you can ask for.
I think that's
Do
it.
you wish more people did things like this? Do you wish more people cared about humanness?
I don't wish more people cared about humanness. I'm a strong believer in quantity of content over quality of content.
Okay. Explicate.
I wish that everybody posts on Instagram once a day
Okay.
instead of never.
Gotcha.
I wish that Disney made a movie every week instead of once a year.
That's a little different, but yeah.
You should read The Secret History by Don Tyree.
I'll try.
It's the best book ever. Way better than The Road by Cormac McCarthy. But in a similar vein. Alright, I think we're done.
Change like the wind, like the water,
Yeah, be real.
like skin.
I talk a lot, sorry.
No, that was exactly.
Change
No, it's much more.
like the sky, like the leaf,
Look boring.
like a butterfly. Would you live forever, never die? While everything around passes